Would you like to be in one of the most exclusive groups in the world? This group has literally had an out of this world experience, and only 24 people have ever done this, and that is travel to the moon. My name is Gunnar Howe, and I'm a student at ASU BB. I've completed an AP Physics course, so I know a little bit about NASA, being an astronaut, plus it interests me, so I've done some of my own research. There are three categories that I would like to discuss to give you all a good idea about this occupation. That is, first off, the history of astronauts. Second, how to go about becoming an astronaut or what it takes. And thirdly, lastly, I'd like to discuss what you could expect on a travel to the moon or on what it's like. Alright, so let's dive into the adventurous life of an astronaut, and hopefully, y'all can come out with a pretty good understanding of the occupation. Right. Let's first look at a brief history of astronauts. First, astronauts used monkeys to travel to space in order to test the biological effects of space because they didn't know what it would do to people. So, of course, they sent something else up there, which were monkeys, to test this to see what would happen. The first few monkeys up there, sorry to all you animal lovers, but they all died. They were all named Albert. The first one went up, and the first two actually died due to parachute failure on impact. The third one died in an explosion right above the moon. The spaceship exploded. And the fourth one died in another parachute impact. The fifth one died actually just like landing on the moon. It was too rough, and I guess the spaceship just was beat to smothers when it hit the moon. And the last one, the sixth one, actually landed on the moon, and it's the first monkey to land on the moon. But sadly, it died 2 hours later. The first person to land on the moon, I think we all know who that is, and that was a pretty big deal. The first woman to land on the moon was Tereshkovak in June 1963, and the youngest person to ever land on the moon was 25. The oldest person to ever land on the moon was 77. That's a pretty big age difference. I don't know how a 25-year-old became an astronaut, but it's pretty impressive. There are a group of self-funded travelers that go and they pay their own money to be able to go up there, fund their own missions, which that would be something I'd like to do if I ever had enough money to do that. So, secondly, we will discuss what it takes to be an astronaut and how to go about doing this. To be an astronaut, you have to have outstanding grades. You have to have 20/20 vision. You have to have you have to be a citizen of the USA, and you have to be just outstanding in pretty much everything you do, because there's 6,000 to 8,000 people that apply every 5 to 6 years to accept applications, and only 8 to 35 of these people get selected to be astronauts. It is a 20-month program to become an astronaut. Lots of training, lots of knowledge, lots of that kind of stuff. The food they eat is packaged food, weighs about 0.27 pounds per package. Um, it's tested. The food's tested in reduced gravity. Just make sure it stays good. And they select a menu a couple months before the mission to find out what the astronauts like. They're limited to 3 gallons of water per day. Last, we will look at what it's like to travel to the moon and what you could expect if you were to take this adventure. You could expect some health hazards like decompression, sleep disturbance, loss of eyesight, loss of muscle and bone mass, and it may harm and accelerate the onset of Alzheimer's. That's a study that they've done. So astronauts always work out while they're up there to keep their bone density and mass up in the zero gravity, because when they're floating around, there's nothing to keep their muscles active. It takes about 3 days to get there. To sum it up, astronauts lead an adventurous and exciting life, and this is one of the biggest things that I've always wanted to do, is be an astronaut. I hope that y'all have been persuaded to look into this through the 3 points I've discussed. Which first, I discussed the history of astronauts. Second, I discussed what it takes to become an astronaut, how to go about doing that, and thirdly, what it would be like to travel to the moon and what you could expect, and the problems that they've had. The idea of gazing down at Earth's blue marble surface, participating in extraterrestrial research that is cutting edge, and someday maybe even stepping foot on another planet is just irresistible.